Welcome into Game Night Live Rewind's Girls Lacrosse Playoff Preview Show. We got brackets for you in 4A, 5A, 6A. Going to walk you through all of it. Want to thank you for joining us. My name is Dane Stewart. Please be joined by Kenzie Christiansen. And Kenzie, we got a lot of interesting matchups. Great playoff action coming your way right here on KSLSports.com. But let's dive into each of these classifications. We'll start with the 4A bracket. Bear River, the top seed in this bracket. You have Mountain Crest, the 2 seed, Juan Diego, the 3, Ridgeline, the 4. Some region matchups in the quarterfinal as you've got Ridgeline taking on Skyview. Kenzie, when you look at this bracket, 4A, any of these quarterfinal teams that you feel like, man, this is maybe a sleeper, could put together some runs, upset some teams, and maybe make some noise in the 4A bracket?
I think some of the most competitive games that will happen, just starting a little bit before quarterfinals, just that first game and first round, Judge versus Logan. I think Judge will take home the win there, and then it'll put him against Bear River. So putting everybody there in quarterfinals, I do believe with just the competition both teams have had, Bear River will take the win between Judge and Bear River. And then skipping over to, Ridgeline and Skyview that are 4 and 5, I think that will be a very competitive game because they are school rivalries. They will bring in the heat both sides. Skyline's a very well-rounded team. They have some really strong seniors, and Skyview has a very young team. So it's going to really be a balance about just energy and who shows up to the field. Ultimately, I do think Ridgeline will take the win there, which would put them against Bear River. Further moving, Mountain Crest versus Waterford. I think Mountain Crest, so this is the hard thing too, is like who Waterford's played, who Mountain Crest has played, in that comparison. So I looked more at the individual teams and just the stats, and I feel like Mountain Crest is a more well-rounded team, a lot more even throughout, where Waterford has like a few higher, more standout players than what Mountain Crest does. So I think Mountain Crest, if they can stay as a unit, they will beat Waterford and ultimately end up with the win there. Juan Diego versus Green Canyon. I think I'm going right back over to the stats on that. I feel like Juan Diego has a handful of really strong players, and I feel like that's the exact same for Green Canyon. They just have some super strong players. So I think it's all about how they're going to prepare their teams in that game to be able to compete, as a unit and not just as an individual player taking the ball, running and shooting, playing their individual game and unifying it. Just going off of also who they played, Juan Diego has played much harder teams than I believe Green Canyon, so Juan Diego will take that win in my book. And then that would put them Mountain Crest versus Juan Diego. Same mindset, going off of stats, who they played. I think even though Mountain Crest is a well-rounded team, Juan Diego has had such a higher competition, such a broader range of teams they've played. I think Juan Diego will take it over Mountain Crest. Moving up with Bear River versus Ridgeline. Bear River's just been blowing everybody out of the water. They beat Ridgeline once. I see it happening again. So then it would end up with us being at Bear River and Juan Diego. I think that'll be a very fun game. Juan Diego has some very technical players that are very finessing it like across the field. That's what I mean, is like playing a beautiful lacrosse game. They have some very beautiful players on the team, where Bear River is very fast. They have very, very fast. They have fast passes, fast runners, and they have strong aggression. So I think it's going to be a balance between those two, where I think maybe speed and drive might beat Juan Diego's, finesse and beautiful players. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, because, that was the question I was going to ask. Bear River's undefeated. Does anyone hand them their first loss of the year, or are they able to cap off a perfect season?
I think Juan Diego's going to put a great fight against them. I really, truly do think so. Juan Diego has a strong senior lineup. I think they'll put up a fight, but ultimately I've seen both teams play, and I mean, every game's a different game for sure. Every team has a way to prepare for their next game. but breaking it down, just seeing the actual statistics of it, seeing, the passing catching plays, how their draw control is, I think Bear River will be pushing all the way through, but Juan Diego will give them a fight.
Awesome. Well, hey, you walked us through every game in 4A. Let's move to 5A, shall we? 5A, look, this is more traditional, right? We got a full slate of teams going. We got full slate of first round games, teams with first round buys. Kenzie, when we look at some of these first round matchups, is there a game or two that you feel like, man, that's actually a really difficult matchup? Keep an eye on an underdog, a lower seeded team here to potentially pull off an upset?
Yeah, the team I look at is actually 14 Highland and 19 Viewmont. Um, when I came across it, I was just looking at the two, doing comparisons, and really trying to figure out which way that will would lean. Um, Highlands played harder games, but Viewmont has some really, really strong players on their team. Just a handful of strong players. I couldn't couldn't myself um, figure out which way it would go. But breaking it down, I do believe that Highland will take out the win because they played such hard
Mm,
teams and have a lot from like Park City, um, just some really hard teams throughout the season that I think
yeah.
they'll take that of those losses and put it against Viewmont, where Viewmont's had a few handful of wins against some, not as competitive teams.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the old saying, iron sharpens iron, right? And when you think about Region 6, you've got Park City, Olympus, Brighton. I mean, we saw Olympus, Kenzie. That team is really good, but that is a top-loaded Region 6. And so having to go up against that, you wonder if that leads to some playoff success. That's a great pick.
Yeah.
When we look at kind of that second round, right? Top seed in this tournament, Park City. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. Brighton the 2, Olympus the 3. Kenzie, did that surprise you?
No, no, not really.
Oh, okay.
Um,
It surprised me.
why I say that is I think from what I've been seeing and playing is that Park City is a very skilled team. They're fast, they're smart, they're very fluent. They have just really um, team uh, teamwork going throughout. So it's just a very, very well-rounded team. Um, and over Olympus, I think Brighton, they have, I don't know how to put this other than Brighton has very pretty players. And what I mean by that is they are very sharp off the draw. They have great stick skills and they are just very connected. Like they know where their teammates are at the whole time. They have that field awareness. They have that player awareness. Nash is a great coach that helps getting them, from point A to point B on the field and filling in those blanks that Brighton might have. Where Olympus, I think, still has a great, I feel like they have the strongest connection in the teams. And what I mean by that is when we did their game, they are used to having a high pressure on them, being able to pass, catch, and making great transitions off of beautiful shots. When we filmed them just this past week, they had tons of beautiful bounce shots, while defense was making connections on them, having pressure. So I think they're just a very strong and well-rounded, connected team that they have high trust in each other to be able to get those passes off with a defender next to them. Where on Brighton on the other side have very beautiful plays. They have a lot of, passion and connection with each other in like that way and a lot of finesse. So I think we're just dealing with two different type of dynamics of a team where they're both really good, but one just kind of ranks over the other just a bit more.
Interesting. Olympus got the regular season win, so we'll see if they were to match up again, who could get the playoff win and potentially advance to a state championship game. Kenzie, when we look at this bracket, I mean, I think Park City again, the one. We talked about Brighton the 2, Olympus the 3, Wasatch the 4. Do you see those as being the best 4 teams that make it to a semifinal, or is there a sneaky team in there that you think could upset one of those top 4 seeded teams?
I honestly think Jordan could beat Wasatch. They're
Oh,
so strong. And what I mean by that is they don't give up on anything. They're fighting for every ground ball, every draw. They have so much drive. They have fast subs. And if they can keep those fresh feet and that hard drive, I think they could be one that's going to be up with the competing teams for sure.
It would be great games. And again, Park City, man, what a great job they've done. The number one seed again. We'll see if they can fend off the rest of the troops in 5A. Let's move to 6A, shall we? The 6A bracket. Look, this is a tough bracket. Skyridge, the number one seed. I think, I don't know. There's a lot of challenge with that in terms of opinions. I think that's very well earned. Mountain Ridge, the 2, Lone Peak, the 3, Dave's the 4. Those two teams played late in the year. Skyridge got a dominative win. You have to wonder how much that affected Davis in the RPI. But these top 4 seeds, Kenzie, anything that stands out to you about any of them?
I personally have talked to a lot of Davis girls and a lot of the Skyridge girls where they learned a lot from each other. And if they were to match up again, I think it would be a closer game just from the amount of knowledge and opportunity of that game that they were able to gain to go to a possible future game.
Interesting. So we talk about, again, we've got some first round matchups in here. We got some teams with, buys to a second round game. Kenzie, when you look at the first round matchups, we don't have a lot of them in 6A. Any matchups that you think are interesting in the first round?
Yeah, Copper Hills. Yeah, when I went to look at that, like I see they have, some teams between them, but looking on their skill set, looking on just their dynamic teams, I was stumped a little bit on what team will come out with the win. So what I took to what I thought between Copper Hills and Weber is Copper Hills played some really hard and aggressive teams. They've had a lot of on them, where Weber had, a few more lighter teams playing against them, not as high competition. So it just kind of goes to who they've played, what they've learned from each game, and how they're going to go against each other. I think those for first round was the one that stumped me and gave me some questions.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. We talked about kind of the top 4. One of the teams not in those top 4, Syracuse. This is a team that got off to such a hot start in Region 1. Region 1 was so strong this year when you talk about Davis and Syracuse and Fremont. But they all kind of took a late dip in the RPI. Those teams respectively 4, 5, and 6. Kenzie, what do you think about those 3 teams in particular, Davis, Syracuse, Fremont? Obviously, Davis, an opportunity to run. We saw them. Syracuse, Fremont, are these teams that can put together playoff runs, maybe get to a semifinal?
I I would I would hope so. Not just from being from the north, but from seeing each teams play and compete against each other. Syracuse has won Fremont. Davis has won, Syracuse has won Fremont. Fremont's won Syracuse. Like, there's so many overlappings of them playing each other that that was a hard one. So where I'm coming down and where my mind is right now is I'm thinking about each team and how they play. Where have a couple really strong girls on Syracuse that are fast off the draw, that are very good at finding the assist to a shot. Syracuse is very connected with those few players, where Davis has a very strong defense in a lot of their plays. And then flipping over to Fremont, is Fremont has a very smart, like, attacking plays, and just a very smart team unity on the attack side. So, like, mashing those 3 together would be, like, I feel like a perfect team. But seeing them as individual, I feel like it puts us in such a difficult situation to know who's going to go where because they're so similar but so different.
So that interesting. And look, again, these are teams that had great region seasons. We know there's some stuff going on, some dynamics there. Young programs still being built a little bit. Coaching staff doing a great job of kind of getting traction there. Skyridge, we mentioned that game against Davis late in the year. It was 1 versus 2 at the time. Skyridge blew the wheels off of them. Mount Ridge, the 2 seed. Kenzie, I'm not going to ask you to pick a champ, but if there is a team that can't upend Skyridge in 6A, who would you say that team is?
Might sound a little crazy, but just from seeing Corner Canyon playing against Davis, I think with even them playing with a couple of players gone, some of their, like, best players gone against their game yesterday against Davis, Corner Canyon pulled through well. And I think if they can play that game with adding on some of their, top players, I think they could honestly have like almost an underdog kind of situation and come pull through with Skyridge. They were very good their first game. Skyridge lost by a bit, but then their second game they were very close in differentials between points with Corner Canyon. So I honestly think Corner Canyon could be almost an underdog and coming up and surprising us.
Wow, that's a great one. They finished fourth in Region 4. They're the 7th seed. Look, if they were to do that, they'd be battle tested, potentially have to go through the 2 seed Mountain Ridge, the 3 seed Lone Peak, the 6 seed Fremont. There's some good teams they'd have to go through to get there. That's a doozy, Kenzie. Bringing the A game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just had such strong drive from what I saw just in that last game they played. That if they bring that power, Lone Peak is a fantastic team. They played them. Lone Peak did overall win against them, but they're a team that learns from every challenges and learns from their mistakes. And I have seen that progress throughout the season. So I think taking the games that they've played in and learning from it and growing and doing those duplicate games like they had with Skyridge and just learning and progressing off of that, I really think that they could be a good team. They could be one up there.
Man, I don't know if we can top that. That might be our ending note. A sleeper pick, the underdog Corner Canyon, a team to keep an eye on here in 6A. Skyridge, fantastic year. Number 1 seed, well earned. We talk about Mountain Ridge, the 2, Lone Peak, the 3, and Davis, the 4. It's going to be a great tournament. We cannot wait. We've got girls playoff action coming up for you right here on KSLSports.com. We'll balance between the boys, but we will have every semifinal and championship game for 4A, 5A, and 6A right here on KSLSports.com. For Vince Francis and Kenzie Christiansen, we appreciate you joining us for this playoff preview for girls lacrosse, and catch us as we bring you all the girls lacrosse playoff action we can right here on KSLSports.com.